Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
And today we're slaying with arrows in this Adventures League legal D&D 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons character build. Before we jump into the content and meat of this video, we want to thank our sponsor, D&D Beyond. Down in the description below, you can find a link to D&D Beyond, as well as a character sheet for the character we're going to build in this video.
So hopefully by the time we're done with this video, you're going to have access to a completely Adventures League legal Wood Elf Archer for use in your Adventures League game.
Yeah, so we workshopped some ideas. We talked about some things that we could do. I mean, there's so many ways to build an archer in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Even if you're restricting yourself to Adventures League, which means you're going to be able to use the Player's Handbook.
And one book.
And one book. So, you know, in this case, we went with Xanathar's Guide to Everything for that one book.
Right.
As well. You can also find that over on D&D Beyond. We have to pick our race, which we've already done. We've already said we're going to make a Wood Elf Archer. Wood Elf is very thematic for creating an Archer type character, even amongst the elves, I feel.
Absolutely. Now, next typically is going to be your class. And there are a lot of options, and many we're just shifting aside. The fact that we went with Wood Elf, we already get access to a longbow, so we really don't need to worry about proficiency. So you could, if you want to play a Wood Elf Archer attached to any class, you can do it. But we're trying to make something, really oomphy and be essentially a badass archer.
You still want to be good at the thing that you do.
Exactly. So our runners-up wound up being War Cleric and Rogue. And I know we did an Archer video before, and Rogue was high on the list, but we're gonna shift that aside.
Ranger is also a good candidate as well, right?
Yes.
War Cleric was good because they have a couple abilities that kind of lend themselves to being an archer or being good at archery, but only a couple times a day. Rogue is a no-brainer. If you go Assassin, you have Assassinate. You get all those sneak attack damage.
Absolutely.
Ranger, if you go Hunter, there's a ton of abilities that are going to make you better at hitting, or not better at hitting, but better at doing damage. And also the Ranger spells themselves lend themselves to increasing your damage potential as an archer. But we wanted to do something a little bit wonky and kind of a little off-kilter and still build an effective character.
Right. And I think we put something together that's pretty awesome. So for this character build, we're going to start off with Monk, and we're going to dive into Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and with that, we're looking at the Way of the Kensei. Now, right away, you automatically get to select once you get here. Once you get to 3rd level, you're going to select 2 weapons, one melee and one ranged, that count as monk weapons for your character, and therefore all those cool monk abilities that you get to do, you're going to do with this cool weapon. And therefore, you've already got your longbow, but you put it in that slot, and boom, now you're making a pretty awesome archer.
Yeah, and not only that, because we started off as a Wood Elf, we already have proficiency with longbow. Now, we're going to lose out on the fact that we're not going to gain that free proficiency. But what we do gain is keeping our concept from the very beginning. And you're going to get other kind of cool abilities to go along with it. And also, we're not going to go pure monk on this one either.
Right. Now, in those low levels, you've already got proficiency with your longbow because you're a Wood Elf. So you don't have to worry about losing out. And because you're focusing on monk in the beginning, you can still get up in someone's face, or if someone gets in yours, and go unarmed attacks like any other monk would normally do.
Yeah, it also kind of opens things up and makes it kind of fun in the sense that you're kind of like Legolas, right? You're able to mix it up close easily. The rules are going to support you doing that. At the same time, you can be firing arrows off into the distance or, into your target, whatever you want to do.
Right.
So thematically, I feel like it's really cool. So like we said, we're going to start early on with Monk. You're probably going to want to take 1 level of Monk, and then I would immediately probably go to our multi-class.
You don't want to wait until you get Kensei. You want to start right in on the multi?
I think so. Just for 1 level dip, and then come back later.
I understand why. So why don't you tell our audience what multi-class we're going to?
All right, we're going to go fighter. There's a shocker there. But we're going to go champion. And we want champion for several reasons. We want champion because we want to be able to get that extra crit range, which is always going to be useful. Every time you attack, you have a chance of that attack now being, is going to have a higher chance of critting. Now, we want to go right away into champion because
you're going to be looking at fighting styles. And anytime you're talking about ranged combatants, you want that archery fighting style so that you get that +2 to hit. Bounded accuracy in 5th edition is really powerful, and very few things give you as big a bump as the archery fighting style.
Absolutely. Now, at this point, I would say you want to bum rush 5th level in Monk in order to get your extra attack and also to get your other cool Monk abilities, get those Kai points up, as well as get into your archetype.
Right, which is, as I said, Path of the Kensei. 3rd level, you're going to get the 2 weapons, and then you're not going to get anything else until after you get to 6th level, which is the one with the blade, as well as being able to choose a 3rd weapon that counts as a monk weapon for you.
Now, this is where we get into an area where it's really, the decisions become a lot harder. And that is, do we go to the 6th level fighter or do we go to 8th level fighter, right? Now, you can mix and match however you want, but there's some really strong arguments for doing both. Obviously, 6th level is a great level to stop fighter in because you're going to get an extra stat adjustment, which is really important and it is going to be super helpful. Along the way, we've picked up Action Surge, Second Wind. So, our extra attack, obviously we lose that, unfortunately. But the other stuff you get are going to help you out tremendously, as well as getting that champion archetype, which is going to increase your threat range.
Absolutely. So 6th level, 8th level is whether you want to get 2 or 3 feats out of your time with fighter. If you wind up going with 2, then you just wind up working a total number of stats and stat adjustments as every other class. If you wind up going with 3, you're going to lose out on some pretty potent monk abilities. But if it's not that important to you and you want that extra stat adjustment or feat, then I would take fighter to 8th level.
Well, there's also one other thing that we're looking at for taking fighter to 8th level. It's not just the stat adjustment and the feat, which are great, mind you, but we also want their ability called Remarkable Athlete from Champion, which is going to increase our initiative modifier, right? Yes. We're going to get half our proficiency modifier rounded up, which hardly ever happens in this game. So that's pretty sweet,
So whether you're at a 5 or a 6 late game, that's still bonus 3 to your initiative.
Yes.
Now we're already building a dex heavy character, so getting those extra bonuses to hit are important. But in order to get Remarkable Athlete, we are going to sacrifice Diamond Soul from Monk, which is proficiency in all saving throws. That's a tough one.
It is extremely tough. Yeah, and also you get to spend the Kai point to re-roll a failed save. So those are really tough abilities. Now, I feel like though with this character going first is going to be a tremendous benefit because you're so mobile. You have so much mobility and movement that in theory maybe you're far enough away that you don't have to worry about saving throws as much. Or you're drawing aggro from the rest of the party, which has its own benefits.
Absolutely. And with a monk fighter build, we're going to have a decent amount of hit points. So we've got some staying power. Second Wind winds up helping that even further.
So with that, you're going to have to decide which is more beneficial to you. Do you want all the saving throws, or do you want more feats, stats, and a higher initiative? So from there, we move into background. And here's where we get to have a little bit of fun, and we're not going to worry about the crunch as much, and we're going to focus more on the story elements of the game and role-playing.
So during our initial conversations, Folk Hero and Sage were tossed around as some interesting quirks for this particular character. But we settled on something interesting and odd that we wanted to do with this guy. And we went with Criminal.
We did go with Criminal. I feel like there was 2 front runners up for the concept a little bit, which were Charlatan and Urchin. So we have this idea that intern Jake came up with, that the bow was stolen. Early in the story, this character acquires the bow, but the bow talks to him.
Whether your DM is actually giving you an item that you've got a not a magical bow that is sentient and talks to you, or whether your character is just perceiving this to be the fact and the bow talks to you. Play it as you will.
There is also the concept that, your certain abilities that you have, your monk abilities per se, actually are imbued in the bow and only accessible to you. So it's not like someone else can pick it up and all of a sudden gain your monk abilities. And this would be more like a character flaw than anything. So, you need a little buy-in from your GM, but it's not a big deal. You're not changing anything really. You're just saying, well, my Kai powers, my Kensei powers are actually the bow itself. And it's kind of supported by that later on when, as a monk, that weapon becomes magic in your hands anyway, for all intents and purposes. But we did use our background to kind of inform another decision as well, and that's our alignment.
Now, most of the time, people, when they talk about wanting to play chaotic neutral, it's they want to do whatever they want. And we're not looking in that veins. We're looking at this character is just off. And they'll have conversations with this supposed inanimate object that's in their hands, and there's no voice that anyone else hears, so you're only hearing a one-sided conversation.
So one of the things, too, that we kind of realized as we were making this character and building this character is very tool-heavy, very skill-heavy. From being a wood elf, you get proficiency and perception, as well as a handful of other weapons you wouldn't have gotten, which won't matter once you pick up fighter. From our background, we pick up two tool sets, and we're going to get a gaming set, and we're going to get thieves tools.
When we go monk, we're going to be able to get another tool proficiency, so therefore we're going to pick wood carver to say that you can make your own bows and arrows. Make your ammunition, if you will.
Yeah, and eventually, when you take Kensei, you're also going to get more tool proficiencies, and it's your choice is either painter's tools or calligraphy's tools, which they're really kind of weird in my opinion. But yeah, you get one of those sets, and in this case, we just went with calligraphy, but either one could have worked just fine.
Absolutely.
I could definitely see this character maybe using calligraphy to mark his arrows. And maybe even naming them because, we decided he's a little bit off anyway. Now we're also going to have to pick a couple of skills from being a monk as well. And we're going to get two. And I believe what we went with was acrobatics and athletics because we just see this character as being very physical, maybe not so much cerebral because he's a little off kilter as it is. So, he's into working with his hands and his body as a whole pretty much.
Absolutely. Acrobatics, he's already going to be very dexterous, so that one works out well. I don't see this character as insanely strong, so having proficiency in athletics is going to work out well for the very physical aspect of monk and fighter combined.
Yeah, it's going to offset it, and when you combine, like you said, some of those monk abilities you get, this character's going to seem very athletic anyway, and for those times when he actually has to make a roll, might as well make him better. Now, if you went to 8th level with champion, you could have fell back on remarkable athlete, but instead of worrying about that, we're just going to go full gusto and be athletic.
Absolutely. So then we get into feats, and there's a number of options for you. First and foremost, sharpshooter has got to be on your to-hit list, because it's absolutely necessary for getting, those long-range shots, getting that cover out of the way.
Yeah, it's really tough in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons when you get to those points where you can either choose a stat ability or the feat itself, because feats are just fun, right? But they're usually not quite as useful as the stat abilities because they're usually going to affect roll after roll after roll. But so in this case, we're probably going to use a bunch of those to get our dexterity up to 20 as soon as possible, and then we can start looking at feats if we wanted to interchange those. Like you said, sharpshooter, if you're creating an archer, why would you ever not take that one?
Exactly.
Then we kind of came up with a list of optionals, which alert if you want to really lean into, I want to go first and not be surprised and be kind of very aware and perceptive.
There's mobile. I mean, you're already getting an extra 5 feet from wood elf. You're getting extra from monk, depending upon where you take your level split. But an extra 10 and whatnot with that, I think could be useful depending upon how you play your character tactically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maxes you out at something like 65 movement. Yeah. Not bad at all. You also have Skulker if you want to do a lot of sniping. That can be pretty useful.
Elven Accuracy, the racial feat, is very good for using your longbow.
Martial Adept is another one. If you want to pick up 2 Battlemaster maneuvers and an extra, that Battlemaster Adept die, which is going to add to a little bit of damage or to hit or whatever you needed to do at that time, that could be kind of fun.
And last but not least on our list is Lucky. And come on, it's one of the best feats in the game. It's always on the options list as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know what? I would say there's one other that it's a hard choice because you lose a lot of the options on it, but the one thing it does do is pretty sweet, and that would be Crossbow Expert. If you want to be able to fire into people at point blank range and not take disadvantage, that can be super useful.
It is good. I think it's a very very hard decision for this kind of character because you're so mobile. It's how often is that going to happen?
Well, that's true. Also, with the mobile feat, you can get in and out without a problem as long as you attack them. That you won't draw the attack of opportunity. And I guess it's worth noting, too, if you do take Lucky, you can also turn disadvantage into super advantage. So when you do find yourself making that shot at point blank where you would normally get disadvantage, well, now roll 3 dice and pick the best one. So yeah, you could easily substitute Lucky, and you're gonna get more legs on that one.
Absolutely.
So. The question is, what do you guys think, and gals? How would you build your Wood Elf Archer for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons and make that character Adventurers League legal? We have a place where we talk about it. That's down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
While you're down there, don't forget to stop by the description and go check out D&D Beyond and all the awesome content over there.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.